Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Waiting for Catherine and Dave. They should be joining shortly. So today, well, here's Dave. Hi, Dave. How you doing?
Good, you?
Doing great. Good to see you.
You
I
as
was
well.
just mentioning we were waiting for you and Catherine, but I guess we've overcome the technical difficulties. Was that a different or new link?
It was a different link, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sounds great. It's good to be able to get updated.
But I
So
don't.
Catherine, I'm sure she'll be joining shortly. Um, so what's new, Dave?
Nothing. Are we live?
Yeah, we're
Oh,
live.
brilliant. All right. Well,
Yeah,
nothing's new.
yeah, nothing like being spontaneous.
Yeah, nothing's new. I'm just excited to be here as always. Life is good. Went to the Jaguars game on Sunday and had a great time. Wonderful, wonderful company and friends to be with.
Well, that's terrific. Nice way to
Speaking of community today.
start a show, especially with community. Let me see if I'm hearing from. Okay, okay, here we go. Hi, Catherine. Sorry for a little bit of technical difficulty, but we're here together, and that's all that's important.
Yep.
You know,
It
it's
happens.
all, yeah, I know. It is what it is, right?
Absolutely, but it's good you guys inform me because I would be wondering. So it looks like we're on safe footing.
Right.
And today's word of the day is community. So invite everybody who's in the audience to share their comments and we can become more relevant. So let's start with Dave. Dave, what's your thoughts on community?
Well, as I said, I just had a great experience with a community of friends, with the one in particular this weekend. When I think of community, I think historically we think of little sects of people who are grouped together that have a common purpose or some sort of moral compass that guides them together and very tight knit. But as more I thought about it, community today, as we're proving right here, being in three different locations, community is a matter of no longer a matter of distance. Shared interests and shared perspectives is still there though, and it's those who show up for us, are there for us when we need them, sometimes when we don't need them, or more importantly we don't want them because we're in a snit for whatever reason, maybe, but they're there to see for the purpose, the common purpose, common goal of improving each other to a certain end. And distance is no longer a factor thanks to technology, and that's a very important part of it, I think.
Yeah, great start. A lot of information there, but it all sounds good. So Catherine, your thoughts?
It's fascinating how relationships form communities, right? And we're really, I think we're meant to be in community health wise, one way or another, right? Psychologically, physically, emotionally. What's also interesting is that there is also the flip side of community when it gets too rigid. If it doesn't flow,
Mm-hmm.
the purpose, I believe, the purpose of the community is really defunct. It does not serve. And so it's, like any relationship, everything is always in flux, and the emotional intelligence part of it is crucial to have a successful community, I think.
I think those are so important points that you just presented, Catherine. In community, I first thought I saw as community chest on Monopoly, which is getting a card and hoping for a get out of jail card. And the next thing is really a belonging, right? I mean, either you belong to a community or you don't. Either you align with it or you don't. And if you don't align with it and you don't belong to it, then you're not part of it. And that's not your community. So, really finding communities that are relevant, relate to where you are and where you might want to go, and who you might want to meet and collaborate with is really important for people's life decisions. You know, you go to your first job, that's going to be a major influence, good or bad, based on how they believe and what the culture is and how they treat people. Because people end up doing what they were taught to do when they entered something. And it just repeats itself. So you have abusive bosses and you have benevolent bosses. And usually they'll be the ones who, set the tone for what you do. We've got Leslie here. Great to see you, Leslie. Without you, we wouldn't get as many relevant comments and directions. So, happy to have you here and happy to have you back on the show soon.
Yeah.
So thank you, Leslie. And here we go. Another superstar on LinkedIn, Nicole. Great to see you. Thank you for taking the time, both you and Leslie. It's very important. And it's great to see people, especially since today's word is community. And, although LinkedIn has 1 billion members, one's community you can number probably on 2 hands as far as the ones that you relate to, want to collaborate with, and support each other and belong. And Nicole calls Leslie a big sister. That's great. And, family is a community too, and we can all be family without being related in traditional ways. Dave, now that you got all this to go with.
Well, I got a couple things there. Yeah, I had what I was going to say, and you just gave me something to think about was, I just tell the personal side real quick is I confuse people when they ask, where's my mother? What does she do? And I say, well, which one? Because I have three women that I consider my mothers. One is my stepmother, my dad's wife. One is the mother of a girl I dated. Like I went on a date once with her back in high school, but her mother became kind of a mom. And then the third is a childhood friend's mother. And unfortunately, we lost Andy 20 some odd years ago, but she's filled in as another mother for me. And when one of the other two couldn't be there, they were there. That's my community. That's my family. Like you said, Don, that's where I'm building on. Community can become a family, and sometimes family has nothing to do with blood. It has to do with the people that you surround yourself with to build yourself to be better. So that's where I draw the line there. I confuse people all the time because I say my uncle, my auntie, my mother, my father, whatever. They're like, how many mothers and fathers? Oh, I don't really. I have a very small blood family, but I have a huge community I consider family, and brothers and sisters, folks that I served with especially fall into that category. And not everyone, obviously, but the ones that I was tight with and I served with in particular during tough times, we leaned on each other. Mm-hmm. But that drives to the second point. The first point I was going to make originally was that community, I started with community has nothing to do with proximity anymore, but it has to do ultimately, and this goes to Catherine's, I'm going to bring it up every week, Catherine, sorry, is the energy that we put out there. It's the contribution. If you're not contributing to a community, then you're not going to fit into the community. So it's about contribution more than proximity. And what energy you're putting out, you'll receive back. And that's where the bonds of the community strengthen. Look, I don't talk to my mothers every week even, but I know and they know that if we need each other, we're there. We're talking almost 50 years I've known Andy's mom, and 20, 30 plus years for the other two moms. So it's not that we have to talk to each other every day, but we know there's just a sense because of our energy that we've put out through the years. If it goes too long or if we call too soon, then something's not quite right. Maybe we need to engage. And it's that engagement that makes a community, not proximity.
Yeah, that's an excellent overview. Thank you, Dave. Catherine?
Well, I always love it when you talk about the energy, Dave, because I always think of, in terms of...
It's in my brain every day now.
Okay, good. And it makes a difference, doesn't it? It's totally to your advantage. Oh my gosh. Because when you are even on, Zoom, you can pick up on people's energies, right? And so, if you're welcomed into the group that day, or maybe something's going on and something is amiss, and it's just like, oh, well, what is it, right? And so then we have the opportunity to evaluate, is it something that I'm emitting, or did I walk into a situation that is in some sort of hardship, right? And that goes back to the contribution that you're talking about, Dave, because if we're not contributing in a positive sense, then what's the point? And that brings me to think about, jobs in the past where I've overstayed my welcome, right? and it didn't feel good when I left, and it didn't feel good when I was there. And I think that in order for us to be able to evolve, we have to be in a welcoming community, and where people are accepting their own evolution, their own progress, and honor the progress of others too. And as we all know, it isn't always a smooth ride. And so we're just not going to be, all bright and shiny every day. Although I do believe that there is a gift in everything. So everything is information, everything is a gift. So it's what we choose to do with it, and what we choose to do with the relationships that we're in.
Yeah, well, I think that really speaks to interpretation, right? It's not what happens, it's how you feel about what happens, and then what you can do to respond to it. Well, we've got Lisa here today again. Thank you so much for being a regular. That qualifies you for a future guest spot on the show. So you win early in the day. Thank you, Lisa. Omar's here, my good friend and part of the community. And I think part of community is coming back and returning, and, being there and caring. Without care, you're not that deeply involved in the community, right? When you have people picking up cans and putting them in the trash bins, they're taking an interest, they're caring, right? Because it's their community. If something's going on in their neighborhood, they try to help, and they're usually have an open door. If someone needs a cup of sugar or whatever. It makes you feel part of something, like you belong, that you're not isolated and alone. And in today's, partitioned world where everybody is in their little corner in their little house, there is something to more than what's inside your house. So Omar said, nothing like listening to the great advice on the Hour of Empower show. You're so right, Omar. So proud to have helped in producing this show, but it's really the audience and Dave and Catherine that make it all work. So, I guess it speaks for not taking credit, but sharing credit, or giving credit, which is even better than just sharing it or taking it. Because what comes around usually goes around. Your first step is someone's next step. We've got OG here today. Hello, LinkedIn family, another one who's joined the community. Thank you, OG. If you have any comments, thoughts, feel free. And Nicole says hello to everybody. So we're all tight now. So Dave, your turn.
Yeah, I think it's great that we have, the regulars and some new people from time to time. It helps to build and strengthen what it is that the community has become. And I think, as we've shared over the last several years, I've been on the show with Don. Catherine, you've been off and on for 2-3 years, I think. And I think the ultimately the vulnerability that we show helps make us human, not just a bunch of people up here sharing the same things week in and week out. And that strengthens a community through honesty, through vulnerability, through sharing experiences, both positive and negative, that people can learn from. And that's what makes a strong community is vulnerability helps do so.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Catherine, can you hear us? I think Catherine's a little frozen.
Yeah, I
So,
noticed that too.
yeah. So I just messaged Catherine. Um, so, moving into community, there are so many aspects of it. There's the business community, the military community, you name the community, and usually with enough people, especially, we've got Catherine back. Great to see you again, Catherine. Uh, we're talking about different communities and how you create them and how you kind of leave them, right? There are certain communities that if you were a pool hall player, right, you ended up in a pool hall with a bunch of other people who were there for the same purpose, give or take. Same thing with a bowling league, but at a certain point, you decide, I'm tired of bowling this year. And you leave the community, but you don't have to never come back. Or you could always be a smaller member of the community. Some people are community leaders, some people are just community followers. But you can move positions anytime. So, there's a lot of flexibility. And I guess it's a matter of really taking inventory and say, what do I need that I'm not getting right now?
Yeah.
And what community could that be that could help me? And I think, again, socialization is so vital to human health, just to be able to relate to other people like we're doing today. Dave?
Yeah, sorry, I was just writing a note. I think what your last point there is something that's missing so many times in when we self-criticize, we're not self-analyzing, and it takes a lot of self-reflection to recognize what is it I'm missing, what in my community is missing or lacking, or where can I find it even. But if I don't know what's missing, I don't know where I'm going to be able to look to find it. So I think a lot of folks, we struggle with depression, isolation, anxiety, lack of community because we don't do the self-reflection first to say, well, the people around me, are they positive or negative? Are they lifting me up? And the whole goal of a community is growth, or are they dragging me down and I'm not growing and I need to break free of it? We don't do that self-reflection very well. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, sometimes it helps to have a community to do the self-reflection because they can give you different perspectives. So sometimes just doing the first step of recognizing, are they weighing me down or growing me? That can be your first indicator that I need to break free or I need to adapt to who's around me. And to your point, Don, I mean, there's nothing saying that we can't be a part of multiple communities writ large. I mean, we have, but again, are those communities that we're a part of, are they helping us grow or not? That's the biggest question we have to ask. And it takes self-reflection. I was trying to build on what you had just said, Don. What self-reflection is missing, I think, a lot.
Yeah, that's great insight. And, it's what you deal with that really teaches you your primary lessons.
Yeah.
So people become experts at something they're totally immersed in time. Nicole says, I'd be lost without my community. That said, I have my inner circle, but I enjoy moving around among the sectors that have formed right here on LinkedIn. Well, that's great. Why not keep all your options open? Keep yourself available. You never know what you don't know. Leslie comes back. Well, here's the Leslie comment. While some communities last forever, I found that as I grow, I often outgrow a community that I was part of. What about you? And I think that's just part of evolution. When you come into something, you know nothing. Everything sounds interesting. And when you've been there long enough, you just heard it over and over again if it's truth. And you decide, well, how do I go from 101 to 201, right? And move up a class. Nicole says, I love that now our needs can evolve and we need to step into a different community, but we can always visit. Absolutely. You're the ones who put guardrails on yourself, whatever they are, or none at all. And a lot of times, why not let it show up, then anticipate it or project it? Because that's typically what it's going to end up like. What you expect is what you're going to end up getting. The other thing, to Dave's point, is knowing one person opens you up to their community. right? How many people do you know, and you know their whole family after a while, right? You know everybody's birthdays, and they invite you for their holidays, and it's your community for a night, right? Memories forever, maybe.
Mhm.
But if you look at everybody as a conduit to their community, and it could be just their family, it could be their neighborhood, it could be the world, you know, if they're so inclined. So the options are enormous. I think the key is who's being proactive. How many people got their first job because it was potluck, right? Someone offered it to you, you took it, and you ended up there 35 years, right? Maybe not as a packer, but maybe now you're an executive. But what if the store next to them would have offered you a little bit more money, right? Would you end up being a carpenter? You never know. But if you already have a plan and you see what, you know, and that's why, real quick, I heard the story from Shaq the other day on YouTube. And he was a delinquent, just a mess. And didn't have his dad was a sergeant in Germany, and talked to him and said, I've got enough money for your two sisters, but I'm not going to get you anything this year. And Shaq said, well, that's the way it is, right? So anyway, he surprised him with a basketball that was signed by Dr. J. And when Dr. J came to town to play, they went to the game. And he says, at that moment, my whole decision in life was done. I was no longer a delinquent, and all I did was play basketball.
Mhm.
But all it took was that one present, that one day, and he might have been ready for it, to change everything. So you got to ask yourself, how did I get to where I am? And was it my doing, or just someone dragged me into it or attracted me to it? So those are important. And one more comment, we'll move to Dave. Yes, and it's important that we share, invite people into your community. You know, and you can't really have your community because it wouldn't be a community unless it was our community, right? Unless you already are, you know, the leader, but that's not a very good community. Anyways, Dave.
Catherine,
Yeah, I got on the comment. I ended up taking
that direction.
It's all good. Well, you know what's so funny is, and not, you know, funny, haha, but what's interesting, I think, is also it's where we feel good about where we can contribute. And it's important to have that give and take, I believe, because when things get to be too one-sided, then that's not functional, right?
Mhm.
And so the law of receiving always starts with giving. And so how am I contributing? That's always a question that I ask myself. Am I a valuable part of this community, or am I just there kind of on recognizance,
Mhm.
seeing what's going on? Right. And so I think that indicates a lot of our longevity in a community, whether we stay or not. Are we able to contribute? Because that's where the fun is, to have the give and take, and the lively conversations and the different ideas, and also feel psychologically safe to express your opinions.
Mhm.
We're in these communities where we're afraid to speak up. That's not a healthy place to be at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the two factors that are so vital is being welcomed and feeling welcome
Mhm.
and feeling valued, right? You know, how many times you go to a restaurant and it's a family restaurant, you know everybody, they know you, and you're feeling more comfortable with the food than a place that makes you uncomfortable, maybe with a little bit better food, but you know, you're not there to eat. You could eat at home, right? You're there to get an experience, you know, that's worth the trip and worth the expense. So I think a lot of times, and I think to Catherine's point, something's not feeling right, it probably isn't right,
Mhm.
right? And I think if you go to certain communities and they look so great on the outside, but they don't mirror that on the inside. You know, they got a mission statement and all these wonderful things, but when it comes time to do something that should be just okay, no one takes responsibility, or accountability. And I think that's important, because without safety and trust, you don't have a community. You got a lot of people together for whatever reason, but it doesn't feel that warm or that inviting. And the nice thing is there's so many communities, even within your community.
Yeah.
How many people go to their kids' baseball games or soccer games and love going to those games, but when their kids aren't playing, they never go to another game watching other kids.
Yeah.
Right? Same game, same kids to a point. So, I think that's a curious situation. So here we go. Nicole says, I appreciate your share, Catherine. We do really need to ensure we are not in a space that demoralizes us. That's an excellent point. A lot of people don't know, because it might be first or second time in a community, and they just think those are the way things go. But it's a matter of self-respect and what feels good to you. And if you just get involved with something really briefly, you don't have a lot of responsibility to have to explain anything or have to mold yourself to fit in, because you'll lose that part of yourself. Then I wish I'd see more overlap in community. Opens us up to new networks and perspectives. And that's why we're pretty much here today, because if you look around, these are people who are involved with live streaming. All of us have live streams, do live streams, and we relate to it because we can learn something that's important that we're all doing at the same time. Right? If we're in the same bowling league, we'd want to know some tips on how to improve our game or do something. And if someone had a tip, you get the benefit of that community. Leslie says, that's what I was talking about. When I wasn't aware and misread how I was being received and undervalued, that's when I step away. Yeah, because you make room for the person who would be better off there, and you open a spot for yourself to find a better spot. So why not shop? You never buy the first thing you looked at, typically. Dave?
Yeah, it's all great stuff here, and I think Nicole's comment, the last one, overlap with communities, and I think that hit the next point that I had written down to share was, community is a force multiplier for growth. And again, what are we here for? We're here to grow. We're here to learn. We're here to experience new things and challenge ourselves to think differently. Although I've said week in and week out, we have a common theme through this. We have different perspectives, and we still are growing out of it, even if we all agree with, 80, 90% of what we say we agree with. There are times where we've challenged other perspectives. And that's what I think a community should be doing. It's helping us grow. It's challenging thought. And to Nicole's point, that's where the active voice needs to take place, in my opinion, where if you see someone in a network, in a community that says, look, I think you could really value your experiences if you join this other community. And as we say all the time, what you put out, to Catherine's point, receiving starts with giving. That's where it's going to start balancing out. You'll see that growth within your network, that you share experiences with somebody else, they're going to share them with you as well, is my point. That's where the growth comes from, because we have joined one community, we know of another community, we network across, we're going to grow.
Absolutely. Catherine?
Well, it's just so fun, because I think that what I was thinking about is, what we tolerate is what we teach. And we teach people how to treat us. And to your point, Don, in regard to self-respect, and, if you're not being treated in a manner in which you appreciate, it's time to go. And, what's also interesting is that how the group tolerates behavior sometimes, which is fascinating, right? Because there can be, like for instance, a wonderful group of people, but there might be one or two people in there that don't,
Mm-hmm.
honor other people in a respectful way. But somehow that's tolerated because of their position in wherever it is they are. And I have found that, when I have exited, a group, that it's not because of everybody. It's typically how the behavior of some people is tolerated. And why is that okay?
Yeah, it's not. And when it's time to go, it's usually because time has went, and you're just figuring it out. So, people feel guilty about leaving something that they've already in a way been directed to leave. And it's usually a cowardly way, where someone just won't come out and tell you, well, because of this, this, and this, we'd rather not have you here. They make it tough, just like in work. Sometimes they just wear someone out. Ask them to keep doing things that are not normal as far as comfortable over time. But if someone is in that situation and it happens little by little, they don't even see it happening. They forgot where they started at and where they are now for wherever purpose or situation. I think another great example of community that everybody has availability to is social media, like YouTube, right? I have got certain people, and same thing on LinkedIn, that I follow, and I hear and see what their community looks like and feels like, and I can go there whenever there's a program or a topic that is of interest to me. So you have I guess different levels or thresholds of community. Ones that are openly public, right? Anybody can visit. Ones that are personal, that you got to know the person, they got to know you to end up at Thanksgiving with them. And then, professional organizations that you might go to a conference once a year and you're part of that community directly for that day, and the rest maybe you get some benefit from. But it's really about scheduling communities, because if everything's about people, communities should be about that plus an extension of it. Okay, here's Leslie that says, Don, that is an example of lost sacrifice, giving up something of lesser value to make room for something of greater value. And you're absolutely right, Leslie, typically. And I think the key is how do you value things? If you put things as a zero cost to you, not what is the price, but what was the cost, you have nothing to lose. When you think what you're given is so valuable and is so expensive, you'll probably be disappointed on what you might get or may never see as a return on it. So I think, if you are in an honest business of giving, you're giving to see benefit to that other person. Sometimes there's not enough room in the boat for two to get something out of one. And usually it's a transfer that you've had enough of, or you're willing to let go and not miss too much. And then Leslie says, I keep missing. Yes, and we often split ourselves too thin when we join too many communities. So it goes back to which communities value us and which do not. And that's a great point, Leslie, because I think the other element is honesty with them. What the expectation is. I'm not going to be able to be here every week, or I can't be on every food drive with you. But I'll be this type of community member. Do we have a place for that? And if they say no, well, time to look for another community or wait for a change. Here we have a new person, Mandy Brandon. Great to have you, Mandy. I agree with you, Don. There are a variety of communities we can involve ourselves in. Some offer us value that others do not. It's important to evaluate how much time you invest in each and the impact it has on you. And it also, what comes to mind, Mandy, is who you meet with first in that community will give you a direction, right? If someone's warm and friendly and
Mhm.
asks a lot of questions and maybe has some coffee and donuts or something to offer you, you're more inclined to warm up because your initial point is skepticism, right? A little bit of fear. How many people walk into a big room, whatever that is, and sit at the last row next to the door, right? So just in case I can get out of here, I'm not noticeable, I'm not interrupting anything. And slowly those people start gravitating to the front of the room. And when they're comfortable, they end up on the stage.
Mhm.
So, it's understanding the growth and opportunity that's involved with initiating something that's possible. Whether it happens, you just never know. Mandy says, great to be here. I believe it's Dave.
Yeah, it's great to have Mandy, and I appreciate her comment there. It's absolutely true.
Mhm.
I'm going to go back a step to Leslie's comment, where we split ourselves too thin and we join too many communities. I'll go back to one of my initial comments, or a couple of rounds ago, was self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
We try to do too much too fast without any idea of what our, not moral or ethical, but our self-interests are. What hobbies do we have? So we try to learn everything and try to whittle it down. But if we have a couple of ideas going in, and instead of trying 10 at a time, we try one or two groups and give them some time, maybe we'll have a better idea. Okay, I don't like that. So that the next group, I can say, well, it's similar to the one before. I don't want to join that community or that organization. It's the self-reflection of knowing who we are, and it's something I struggle with it with when I had neighbors with kids, watching them all try a bunch of different things, and a couple were, I'm all about baseball but nothing else, or I'm all about a band and nothing else, and then there's the people who try everything. There's two sides to this, is what I'm getting at. You have to have some idea. It's courage. To Don's point of going out, and I'm going to try to grow. My growth mindset is I want to experience, I want to learn. So I'm going to go to this big conference room and I'm going to sit in the corner. Well, maybe I'll ask a question to the guy next to me and that'll give me confidence. And it's that process of really identifying what it is you want to get out of something so you can grow. Again, what is the point of a community? It's growth. It's not to stagnate or to be weighed down. It's to grow and get better in yourself. And if you haven't identified what it is that makes you you, or what it is that's missing in you that you want to grow into, you could join a million groups and you'll get nothing from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Catherine?
I love what you're talking about, Dave, because what comes to mind is being intentional. I believe that being part of communities has to be somewhat strategic, because what can we contribute? What do we receive in value? And what's our own identity, right? And not becoming the identity of a group, right? It's nice to say, oh, I'm a member. For instance, I'm a member of the Philadelphia 250, Women's Committee, which is promoting, business, women in business, for the big celebration coming up next year. And I like being a part of that. Is that my identity? No. Right. And so, it's a great way to meet people and become a little bit more involved in community and all of those good things. Though I don't spend a lot of time doing it. I will be promoting it a little bit more because we're going to be looking for applications for, people to join in, to that contest. And so I think when there is a purpose of the committee, the community, all of these things, and if we find things that mesh with our own intention, then that's the most successful type of community that we can be a part of, though it's not always going to be that way, right? Because as we've all been saying, we're all evolving and things change. And so you get to a little point over here and it's just like, oh, time to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's fabulous, some of the points you brought up, Catherine, because a lot of it is environmental,
Mm-hmm.
right? What facilities do they have?
Right.
What interest do they pursue? What relationships and affiliations do they have?
Right.
So, at a certain point, it's not so much about fear or skepticism. It's about understanding you're coming in at the beginning level, right? The first time you open that door, you're as new as anybody could be going into that organization. It's going to take study. It's going to take work. It's going to take effort for you to progress to get the full benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, one of the main scorecards is how do you feel after you participated from where you were before, right? So if you're building a house for Habitat for Humanity, right? Do you really get excited to do that? Are you really empowered after you do it? Do you want to do it again?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it found a place in your life that you had an opportunity to fill. And a lot of it is redirection. Well, I'm spending 3 hours a day watching TV. What could I do with half of that or all of that if I did something more productive? Now, someone could say what I'm watching makes me smarter, better, whatever, and then it's worth it. So there's no absolute to what's a good community. It's really timing and positioning.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need now? What did you need that you're already overfilling yourself with? And sometimes you just get tired. I was talking to my grandson last night. I said, how's school? And he says, it's boring. And I said, they're not stimulating you enough. No, I could do a lot more. And I'm usually waiting. And, to me, the natural thing, find a different school.
Yeah.
Find someone who can cover your speed as opposed to slow you down. And that's the same thing in life, but people don't know they can change, or they're so used to accepting things that aren't comfortable that it becomes normalized. I can take so much abuse. Some people will say, well, why take any abuse? Where's the premium there?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't even hear what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I hate this job. It's killing me, but I need the paycheck. There's always a paycheck with every job.
Yeah.
Now, can you jump off of a building and grow wings before you hit the ground? Sometimes not.
No.
No risk, no reward. And you know what? When you're flying through the air, wondering how you're going to hit, you figure things out real fast.
Right.
And you do what you have to do. So fear of loss should not be the motivating factor. So moving on to Dave.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the last points I'd written down to myself here is that strong community protects your energy, and it's a two-sided coin. You have to set your own boundaries of what your limits are, how much energy you're going to put in, or what you're going to take from them. If it's a negative in particular. Communities should be protective of others. They should be able, it's a two-way street. It's identifying that somebody's giving too much or too little. And maybe, again, as Catherine, you pointed out, we've been with each other enough. We can tell if somebody's not the energy isn't there. Okay, well, I'm going to protect you, and I'm going to talk a little bit more to lift you up a little bit, that type of thing. So, and I fell into that a couple months ago. Don, you caught me. You called me in September and said, you seem a little off. What's going on? What can I help you with? Mm-hmm. And that's what community should do. It's identifying the energy. It's identifying the emotions that people have. And if you're not able to identify that with somebody after a period of time, is it really a strong community? Is it really an energy share, or is it just a I'm pulling from somebody and somebody's pulling from me and I'm giving up too much, and therefore I don't want to be there. It doesn't protect me. It doesn't build me. And again, I'll go back to growth is what we're here for in any community. The second point I was thinking of as you're talking about is we seem to talk about community as not necessarily a formal structure. It doesn't have to be a formal structure. This is semi-formal, if you will. We know that there's going to be a meeting every week. We know that there's a group of us.
Mm-hmm.
But a community, I was thinking at the very beginning, and I'm trying to verbalize this and put it together, is I'm a member, for example, of the military veteran community. But there's no organization that says, pay us our dues. But within that, there's VFW, DAV, there's other social groups that belong, but they may not all fit your desires. I don't align with the Veterans of Foreign War, for example. A lot of people think they're old coots who just sit around the bar telling stories of World War II or Vietnam or whatever. And that's not something that's really socially for me. So I've set a boundary. I don't want to go be that. But there are other organizations that I do like to talk to. And even informally, I know that if I'm in a certain mood, that energy that I'm feeling, I may want to just talk to my buddies. There's no formal organization, but it's my community that I can call one or two guys and say, hey, I'm feeling bad today. Or I'm feeling good. I need to share some information with you, something that I can lean on them. It doesn't always have to be negative, is my point. Community lifts us up through both negative and positive, I think.
Absolutely. Catherine?
It's interesting how people talk to themselves, right? You can tell by how they talk to other people and how what their energetic broadcast is. You can almost tell how people talk to themselves, whether they're evaluating themselves kindly or they're not, right? And that influences how they are broadcasting out and about. And I think that it's not just it's not just what people are saying in the community. It's the overall energetic feel of it, whether it's welcoming or you want to contribute. Like to your point, Dave, you didn't want to be, in that particular environment. And I think that a community that calls themselves XYZ, but how they're meeting and where they're meeting is not congruent with the message. I mean, there are so many, as Leslie was saying, like the split energy. There's split energy within communities as well. So what's fascinating is if that's a question, it's time to go.
Yeah, well, it brings to mind, a slogan at one of my community meetings in the past was, when you're down, you need the meetings. When you're up, the meetings need you. So it is a real energy. And what I've started to qualify groups and individuals who I will collaborate or associate with is, are they have positive energy? Right? If someone's just complaining, and an easy telltale is how people talk about other people in front of you is how they talk about you in front of other people. Right? So if someone's a gossip and they just tell everybody's dirt on them for you, and usually it's to build themselves up and maybe minimize somebody else. But you're starting out with, a false narrative. And pretty soon it just becomes a spider web of all kinds of stuff, and you really can't get deep or get to the essence of something, right? Because if you're looking for treasure, when you find it, you want a big one, right? You don't want to open up this big treasure box and see an earring or that's it, And so there's got to be potential.
Yeah.
You got to say to yourself, well, if I put 2 or 3 years, and I mean, universities are communities. You pay a lot of money, you spend a lot of time, and you do a lot of work. And you get usually nothing after it except the ability to take what they gave you and apply it for some betterment. Well, that's why some people say, well, why would I want to become this type of person when that job is no longer going to be here in 3 years? Where I could become a plumber, a tradesman, or something that's never going to be replaced by AI. And it's all that possibility, because familiarity makes you not want to change. And the question I always ask people, if you didn't own it, would you sell it? Right? If you didn't buy it before, would you buy it now, even though you have it? And if the answer is no, then get rid of it.
Mhm.
Right? Time to go and make room or bring money in. And I think that's about really going over inventory again in what is your life. And at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is I'm happy and I'm satisfied. I love waking up every day.
Yeah.
If you get to that position, don't examine it, enjoy it, participate in it.
Mhm.
A lot of people limit their own upside because, well, they feel guilty. I got too much too fast. I don't deserve it. And they'll find a way of frittering it away. And other people, it says, well, it may be more than I'll ever need, but this gives me an opportunity to help others. I used to go up to people with different opportunities and say, well, would you like to do this? And he said, well, I've got all the money I need. I said, do you know anybody else who doesn't? Maybe you want to give it to them. So Leslie's got a couple comments. I know that's Mandy. Here's Leslie. This is why years ago I started my own women's group, Catherine.
Mhm.
And that's how awareness grows like fog. It creeps in on little cat feet and alerts our intuition, and we wake up. So true. Dave.
Yeah. So, Catherine, when you're talking, I'm the biggest critic of myself, and the self-talk is usually negative, and it usually takes a counselor or, coming into my community to say, wake up and get out of it. There's some friends I talk to several times a week, and they can tell when I'm self-criticizing, and thankfully they are there to help build me up. But these things, I think Don's alluded to it earlier. Community doesn't happen by accident. It has to be, or it doesn't have to be. It is usually by some sort of action by somebody, whether it's a friend saying, come join us, or you doing the self-reflection and going, I want to be a part of. Mm-hmm. For example, I wouldn't be here, Don, if I hadn't been coached by a coach to look at opportunities for speaking. Okay, mm-hmm. Well, that drove me into a community that has helped me grow over the last several years. And it drives us to who we want to connect with. And if it didn't work out, Don, then 2 years ago, we would have said, hey, we tried and we're done. But it's grown because we've put the work in mm-hmm. to find new words, to share and be vulnerable with what we want to express to others and empower others to learn from our experiences, for example. And vulnerability is a big piece of it. During COVID, I read Brene Brown's books, and that was my renaissance, if you will, in my journey, and vulnerability and being open. And I haven't been the greatest at it because I criticize myself, but when we are vulnerable, that's when we open up opportunities for the community to learn more about us, ourselves, and we grow from that. And a growth mindset is very important to building a community.
Absolutely. Great points, Dave. Catherine.
Well, I always talk about the ultimate mind diet, right? How we talk to ourselves makes a big difference. And so getting back to the evaluation piece, I think utilizing our curious observer, we can use that for ourselves, because I do believe the curious observer has a bit of mischief in it, and we get a lot of information very quickly that we can use without too much judgment, right? Yeah. It's like, wow, what was I thinking that caused me to say that or do that? And I also think that we can use the curious observer, our own curious observer, as far as curiously observing a group that we may want to spend time with, right? And so I think that it's just like, okay, I think it would be a good idea to do a little evaluation before we jump in with both feet sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes we go, in my experience, I've, a bit of a jumper at times and jump in too quickly. And then it's just like, wow, I think I missed something. Because now something is very evident, and it's just like, well, I don't know, this is what I wanted to sign up for. But everything, of course, is a learning experience. So, I think that we do have to give ourselves a little bit of slack on occasion, although I do think the more intentional we are, the more effective and the more successful we are.
Wonderful points, Catherine, as always. And, what I see now is that you need to make it easy on the communities to want you also. You're not the only one qualifying.
That's right.
When you're checking them out and what's going on, they're checking you out and they're talking among themselves. Hey, that guy's been here 3 weeks in a row. Who is he? What is he here for? The other thing is to come in modest and humble.
Mhm.
It's their organization. A lot of people come in and within a day they know every change they need to make, right? They come in as an authority or a know-it-all, as opposed to a student and a person who wants to serve. And do I qualify? And am I willing to take the responsibility and accountability to what membership does? I mean, you could sign up for a member for anything if you probably send a check with it. And you could say I'm a member of it, but you're not an active participating member. You're a pedestrian or a spectator at that point, and that's fine. There's a good place for people who don't have the time and really aren't that committed or interested, but just enough. And you'll see members that show up once a month. Some people show up 3 times a week. They wouldn't miss a thing. And that's cool because there should be a place for everyone in their own time and fashion. And maybe it takes every month for 3 months to say, I want to go weekly now, or I want to do this more, or hopefully say I can transition. I can keep doing what I'm doing as I get better and smarter and more aware of this and build that up, and then leave the old behind and dedicate myself to the new. So how many times do we reinvent ourselves in a lifetime? And for younger people, they're going to have to do it like on the fly. There is no 20-year employment anymore, that gold watch. I mean, those days are over. And once you know that, at least you're aware of it. And I think that's the key. There's 2 things in life, things that you caused to happen and things you had no control over. And the things you caused to happen, that's where you can learn. The things that happen, like a piano falls out of the 2nd-story window and hits you, well, there's nothing you could do about it, not take responsibility for that. So last thoughts, Dave and Catherine.
I think I was just writing down 2 points there, things it's separate from community necessarily, but I think too many people try to control too many things that are going on around them, and they don't recognize the no control over things out of their control. Nothing can happen. Nothing they do will change what's going to happen. And we need to recognize them for what they are and be prepared for them, but recognize that you're not going to be able to stop them or start them because you have no control over them. Control is a big problem, I think, with many people that drives that. But to the last point, what you were saying is people go into these things, whole hog, or they kind of dip their toe in. That's where they're setting their boundaries. They're setting their intention. They're understanding what their limits are. In the economics, the scarcity of resources. We only have so much time. Some people have more time to devote 3 days a week than one day a month. So you got to take an analysis of that and self-reflection again.
Excellent. Catherine?
When you were talking about job longevity and the gold watch, it reminded me of when I, graduated from college, and my first nursing job was in Florida. And the big trend at that time was, you retire you get the gold watch, you sell the house, you move to Florida, and there's no adaptability, right? And so these people, because of the environment, lack of adaptability, fish out of water, they're getting sick. And so what, you know, I decided at the ripe old age of 23, I was never going to retire. That was no way to live, right? So I think that there's a huge advantage to many people actually being forced, you know, pushed to adapt more quickly, because I think it's essential that we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was forced to retire, 20 years. I didn't promote, so it was kind of forced on me, and I had to adapt, and I didn't do it very well. It took me about 4 or 5 years. So I understand. I completely agree with you, Catherine.
Well, I think what it all points to is patience and giving things the time it needs, not the time you want. Right? So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in the most natural way, and accept that. The more accepting, less rejecting, or especially self-pitying, you have a better chance. And, you know, I think to wrap it all up, community can be wonderful if you work at it, think about it, and are honest about it. Because a lot of people will be dishonest about the next community they just left the last community, and expecting things to change if they don't. So anyways, want to thank the audience. It's been wonderful. I love seeing these names. I mean, everybody is adding real positivity and contributing, and want to make this community better for being part of it. And we want to make this show better for the community to justify everybody's time, effort, and involvement. So keep coming back, and happy to have a call with anybody, anytime. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you next week. If you have any words you want us to discuss, I'm always open